Parshas Vayeishev. This week's Parsha has the unfortunate episode of the sale of Yosef by his brothers. They plot to kill him. They say, "L'chuven ahargehu, v'nashlicheu b'char boros." Let's kill him and we'll throw him in one of the pits. And we'll say that a wild animal ate him. And Reuven heard, Vayishma Reuven, this is in Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, that's 37:21. So Reuven heard, V'atzileu mi'adam, and he saved them. He saved him, Yosef, from their hands. Vayomer lo nakenu nafesh, we can't kill him. Vayomer lehem Reuven, and Reuven said, Al tishpchu dam, don't kill him. Hashlicho salabora said, just throw him into this pit alive, don't kill him first. So now the Torah observes, the Torah gives us the background that Reuven did this to be able to save Yosef's life and to return him to his brother, to his father. So then the Torah says that Yosef came, they stripped him of his coat of many colors, striped coat. They took him, they threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, had no water. And they sat down to eat, and they see Orchas Yishmaelim Ba'amigalad. All of a sudden, a caravan of Ishmaelites who were traders came. And they end up selling him to they say, L'chumenim Krenu Ishmaelim. Now, here's the question. We're going to skip some of the psukim that are important, but not germane to the point here. Then it says, Vayashav Reuven al habor, v'nei ein Yosef babor v'yikros begadov. Reuven returned to the pit, and he saw that Yosef wasn't there, and he tore his clothes. Vayashav el achiv el echad vayomar hayeled einenu v'ani ano anivot. The boy isn't here. What am I doing? Where am I going? Where am I coming from? He seems to be caught by surprise, and he returned to the pit. Where did he return from? There's no description here of his having departed, but he clearly wasn't part of the group that sold him because he was surprised. It's evident from the fact that he was surprised that Yosef wasn't in the pit, so he was surprised by Yosef's not being there. So where did he come from, and why was he not aware? So Rashi comments on this, and Rashi says he wasn't there when they sold him because evidently they took shifts in aiding Yaakov, and it was Reuven's turn to aid him, so he left. He was dutiful and responsible, and he took leave for the day and went to aid Yaakov, and then he came back and he saw this. So there was a gap of his presence. He was not there when the sale took place, and that was meaningful because he had planned to save Yosef and to bring him back home, and that didn't work out. And then Rashi quotes another explanation, Davar Acher, also koya b'sako v'taniso al bilbo yitzui aldiv. He was in mourning. He was wearing sackcloth. He was going through a process, we might characterize it as tshuva, as repentance for having messed around with his father's bed. We know this episode from previous Parsha, in which after Rachel dies, Yaakov moves his bed into the tent of Bilhah rather than Leah, and Reuven takes umbrage at this, and he messes around with the beds. The verse itself says Vayishkav, that he lay with Bilhah, but the Meforshim say that he didn't actually have intimate relations with her, but he did remove the bed, and he regretted it, and he did tshuva, and he not only did tshuva, but he persisted in the outward manifestations of regret, which is wearing sackcloth and comporting oneself in a fashion that is conducive to regret and also demonstrates regret. Those are two reasons that Rashi cites. There's a Midrash which reflects one of these explanations, but also suggests that Reuven had left to get a rope to save Yosef. So we have three possible places, if you will, that Reuven was in, so that he, at the time that they sold Yosef, he was either servicing his father, or he was just caught up in his own to Shuvah, or he went to save. He went to get means of saving Yosef, which would be a rope to pull him out of this evidently deep pit. So let's look at these three different scenarios conceptually. First of all, Reuven is concerned about his brother's life. There's no question about that. We see that. The Torah tells us that. He kind of diverts his brother's plans, and he wants to save his brother and return Yosef and return him to his father. But he doesn't, either because he's fulfilling a competing duty. What's a competing duty? Well, he has an arrangement, and his arrangement is that he has to watch his father. So that we might say is a valid competing priority, and he evidently didn't realize or didn't think that there would be a sale. They hadn't planned on it. It's evident from the verse that says that they sat down to eat and they lifted up their eyes, and suddenly appears a caravan of Ishmaelites. So one could argue that he should have stuck around with Yosef, and it might well have been the case had he known what was going to happen, although we don't know how much attending Yaakov needed at the time. Okay, how about this? Let's take the last one, which is he went to get a rope. That's laudable. That's following up on the plan. He did his best, and his plan was foiled. He tried to get a rope. While he was gone, the sale took place. How about the sackcloth? He was mourning. He was engaged in tshuva. This is tricky. One can experience a profound spiritual inspiration. It can be a positive one. It can be a negative one. This time we'll call it negative in the sense that he felt bad about his conduct. And as a result, he turned inward to correct it. Now, there's a problem with that. And the problem that happens when one turns inward is one risks excluding those who are not inward, meaning excluding others besides yourself, which means a person can get so caught up in his own pursuit of righteousness that he becomes unmindful of other people and other priorities. We don't see a lot that Chazal criticized Reuven, and I'm not suggesting that he's to be criticized, but I am suggesting that there's a lesson to be learned here, which is much of life and much of halacha and Torah values is about how to resolve competing priorities. And sometimes those priorities strike us as being compelling and very intense. Now, certainly, if he was on some kind of rotation and he was one of 12 or 10 or 11 brothers who was servicing his father, and it was his turn, Now, should he have negotiated with somebody else to swap out? Hard to say. But if you and as far as running to get a rope, well, that certainly is laudable. He was trying to follow through, and he couldn't control every circumstance. How about this business of wearing sackcloth? Well, that could be problematic. I'm not saying about Reuven specifically, but it could be problematic for us, for any one of us, who, when we get inspired to increase our personal devotion and our commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a laudable thing, we run the risk of not being mindful of the needs of others. And there's a particular risk when engaging in intense introspection and devotion, which is that it is, generally speaking, laudable. And it is a process that, generally speaking, produces positive results. But we see that it can have a risk if it's not balanced. And the balance has to be that we're mindful of other people. We're mindful of other competing priorities and considerations. And that's life. Life is balancing the various considerations that we have. As Pirkei Avos says, that the world stands on three things: Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasodim. And each of these represents, according to the Maharal, represents a different area of relationship. There's Torah, which is a relationship between an individual and himself. There's Avodah, which represents the relationship of an individual with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's service. And then there's Gemilas Chasadim, doing acts of kindness, which represents a relationship of Bein Adam L'Chaviro, of our relationship with other brios, other human beings. And it's a balance. And if we take any one of these by itself and inflate it at the cost of the others, we end up out of balance and likely in a position to do harm. And this is what happens, for example, I believe, with those areas of social endeavor, especially those who purport to be representing Jewish values, but all they are focused on is human rights and social justice. And if you don't focus on your own personal responsibilities, your own conduct, and your relationship to the Almighty, then you end up being out of balance. And what we seek is a total package, a total balance, so that we can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly and bring others along with us. Have a good Shabbos and a happy Hanukkah.